All right. So what I was thinking about talking about today is Dalton Kincaid and good housekeeping. We're coming up here on the start of the season on Thursday, and well, everybody's draft should have probably been this Saturday. I mean, I'm sure there's some leagues that are still doing their drafts, but like everybody's draft was this Saturday. And you got to get to the end of the draft. You got to like look back because obviously things probably didn't go as expected for you or anybody else. You got to be able to look at your roster, see how things went, take advantage of what went on around it. Some guys rosters are going to be heavy with running backs. They're going to be heavy with wide receivers. Like I've always said that like you should be prepared to come out of your draft with like two tight ends and two quarterbacks, just because that's the way that the market's going to dictate. So anyway, the reason why I bring up Dalton Kincaid is because in my friends and family league, Dalton Kincaid went like the 12th round. I had already gotten Waller and Kelsey in that league, so like picking up a third tight end was probably really redundant. Anyway, with Dalton Kincaid, in my main money league, Dalton Kincaid went undrafted, and that's not entirely unsurprising when you look at the fact that like Dalton Kincaid, ESPN obviously, he's only going drafted in about 64% of leagues, which is like 1 out of 3 leagues is going to have a guy like Dalton Kincaid go undrafted. So when you look at a guy like Dalton Kincaid, how he translates, they're going to be running a lot of what looks like we can call it like 11 and a half personnel in Buffalo. So from a depth chart standpoint, like Kincaid or Dalton Kincaid is going to be competing with Khalil Shakur and Deontay Hardy. Neither of those guys are particularly interesting as players. Maybe Shakur because he's got that he a little bit more desirable profile, but he's only a 5th-round pick compared to Dalton Schultz, first-round profile. Anyway, the point being behind this is from, and I brought this up before in other streams, because I'm not going to get into like Luke Musgrave or Puka Nakua or A-Chain. But when you look at what needs to happen for Dalton Kincaid to be like a top 10 or even top 5 tight end, like we're looking at numbers that like he's probably best comparable to like Evan Ingram, 73 catches, 766 yards, 4 touchdowns, and I have the scoring leaders on the other side of what is a typical wide receiver 3, and we can kind of see like Jacoby Myers last year going for 67 catches for 400 or 800 yards, 6 touchdowns. So even if Dalton Schultz is not heavily featured in the offense, but when he's on the field, the ball is going to go to him. We can look at him and go like, well, he's probably going to be like in that Deontay Johnson, Jacoby Myers, Juju Smith-Schuster range of outcomes. And if he hits that mark from a standpoint of him being listed as a tight end when he's kind of more like a big slot, or even that you hear the term like move tight end, where he's almost going to be playing like a fullback in certain regards. Like they're going to be building mismatches to run Dalton Schultz. When we get him up there to like that wide receiver 3 type numbers, we can even look at like Mark Ingram, who was injured for a lot of last year, but like now you're getting to the point where like without touchdowns being involved, he's a top 5 tight end, which I think is well within his range of outcomes. And if he's missing out in your leagues, if he's making it through drafts all the way to hitting the waiver wire, and you can pick him up and just throw him at the bottom of your bench, like what's the worst that's going to happen is you're going to find out he's not going to be used in that 11 and a half personnel. He's not being heavily targeted. And to break it down, the way the Bills offense looks like it's supposed to work is they want to make sure that when teams want to take away Stephon Diggs, they can go someplace else on the field and get certain mismatches. And Dalton Kincaid can run particular routes against like linebackers and DBs to either take advantage of the fact that he's a better athlete or he's just a bigger guy. And that's how it looks like it's going to break down. There may be some weeks where they're better off lining up in 3 wide receiver sets and having Kincaid be on the field less. But for the most part, it looks like the base personnel for the Buffalo Bills is going to be with Dalton Kincaid on the field. So that's a good thing. And to take advantage of that, when you can get a guy like I have good old underdog pulled up, Kincaid's going about like 117. There are going to be a lot of leagues where he just leaks through and people don't pick him up. That's what happened in my main money league. It's just like, how many people want to carry a second tight end, or is he the second tight end you want to pick up? people have that particular narrative where it's like, rookie tight ends don't do well. Well, you got to look at why they're not being used well. I've talked about this before in other places, but like a guy like Dalton Kincaid, where it's just like the bar is so low for basically a wide receiver 3 to be a starting tight end. I'm going to take that play. It's the same thing with like why Kelsey is basically a near top 5 wide receiver, but he just happens to be, from a fantasy football perspective, in that tight end slot. So I want to take advantage of that. So as you can see, the housekeeping aspect of this is I got to be able to go through my draft and go like, well, what other guys are available? So like on ESPN, I use ESPN a lot because of the fact that my leagues are no longer on it and I can not dox myself. But like Rashad Penny is going like rank 102, but you see he's only going 73% of your leagues. You'd be surprised how many guys leak through drafts and get onto the waiver wire to start things off. And my main money league, like Kenny Pickett's my starting quarterback. He's a guy that I was very comfortable with Kenny Pickett being my starting quarterback because everybody else decided they were going to go with like basically two quarterbacks. And you see in about 60% of the leagues, Kenny Pickett is going to leak through. And as I pointed out in other podcasts, Kenny Pickett's stat line this year is probably going to be very comparable to Daniel Jones last year, which is going to put Kenny Pickett as like, a projection to be quarterback 9, which I'm getting, outside of premium draft picks, which means I can take advantage of that with other guys. So like, these are the things that I want to be going through. And I want to look at the bottom of my roster and say, well, what guys did I get that I really shouldn't have picked up, that in the heat of battle I picked up, but now I got to look at and guys like, Kenny Pickett at the bottom, the bottom of my bench, or a Dalton Kincaid at the bottom of my bench are really good guys to look at. So like, other guys, as I pull up good old Flex, other guys to look at from a standpoint when I go through is all I'm looking at is huge upside. Like Rashad Penny coming at as an average pick on ESPN of 136, but he legitimately takes over the Miles Sanders role, even though I don't think it's particularly a great chance. Like a 27% chance that Rashad Penny is going to hit is probably good enough at the bottom of my bench. The other thing to look at is how many handcuffs made it through. And it's not just your handcuffs, even though you should have picked them up, but you see like a Jalen Warren, that he's a guy, depending on who I pick up, if I picked up a DJ Shark, I should throw DJ Shark away and I should pick up a Jalen Warren because, as much as we say we don't want anybody to get hurt, getting lucky and having someone else's, handcuff at the bottom of your bench is probably a good thing at this point. Now, the other thing that we want to look at when we talk about housekeeping is the fact that I want to see like how other guys came through their draft, because everybody's not particularly happy. So if I can get 2 of my lottery tickets off my bench for somebody else's pick, in order to free up a roster spot, that's always something I want to do. And the other thing is, someone might come to me and do the exact opposite, where they give me 2 lottery tickets for a guy that I'm less than enthused that I got. I got Chris Godwin in one of my leagues, and as much as I think he's a fine flex play, I think there's some risk involved with him. So if someone comes and asks me about, like, say, giving me a Jordan Addison and a Sky Moore for Chris Godwin, I'm going to take the theoretical upside of these 2 lottery tickets versus the theoretical most likely range of outcomes for Chris Godwin. So anyway, that's about all I got to say for today. Interesting that I had a video that did 500 views. So anyway, maybe I'll think of something to talk about tomorrow. I don't know. If I don't have anything, then I won't do anything.